What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? It's your boy Chris. It's your boy Chris. It's another amazing episode of Financipation. This channel is all about making money. It's all about saving money. It's all about building generational wealth. And it's all about financially emancipating yourself from generational poverty. So today, fellas, and today, everybody, today, ladies, today, gentlemen, we're going to be talking about the emergency fund and why I personally believe everyone should have one, as well as how an emergency fund can easily, at some point, help you build millions of dollars and build that generational wealth that everybody who listens to my channel ascribes to. So when somebody asks me this question, what is an emergency fund and whether or not they should have one, my answer is unequivocally yes. I have an emergency fund. My wife has an emergency fund. Our family, we have an emergency fund. And I think that you and everyone else who's listening to this should also have an emergency fund. So I guess my first thing I'll say is this. I'm gonna answer the basic question is, what exactly is an emergency fund? The definition, it changes per advisor, but here is my personal opinion of what an emergency fund is. If you work in corporate America and your boss fires you, as in they tell you need to leave and get out of their office, and you have to basically find employment somewhere else, a partial emergency fund is essentially you being able to go 3 months not having a job and being okay. So let's say you're an entrepreneur. Let's say you're a business owner. Let's say you start your business. A partially funded emergency fund will allow you to go 3 months, basically, not making a single sale. Now, let's say you get fired or whatever, and you need a fully stocked emergency fund. Let's say that you get fired or whatever. If you have a fully stocked emergency fund, that means based off of your budget, and everybody who's listening to this video should have a budget. Full disclosure, I do have a Financipation budget below. Please check out the link below and you can access it. But a fully stocked emergency funds, if you work in corporate America and your boss fires you, you can go 6 months without having a job. That means you can go spend 6 months in Dubai, chilling on the beach. You can spend 6 months in Singapore. You can spend 6 months chilling on the beach in Singapore. But for 6 months, if you have a fully stocked emergency fund, you can go roughly 6 months not needing a job. Conversely, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, and everyone listening to my listen to this video right now, listen to the sound of my voice, you should have a business. You should be an entrepreneur, even if you work in corporate America. If you have a fully stocked emergency fund, that means that you can go 6 months basically without needing a job. So that's basically what I would call a partially and a fully stocked emergency fund. Whether you're married or you're not, or you're single or whatever, you need to know what your expenses are. A partially stocked emergency fund is you being able to go three months without needing a job, and a fully stocked one is you being able to go 6 months without needing a job. So that's exactly how I'll say that. In regards to the emergency fund as well, I know that there's this very popular gentleman out in Tennessee. He says you should have a $1,000 emergency fund and everything, and that works for him. But I'll be completely honest, I don't know anywhere in America where you can go where $1,000 basically pays for rent for very long, and you can go 3 months without needing a job. So in my personal opinion, you should kind of bump that number up a little bit higher. Okay, so basically be able to go 3 to 6 months. And no disrespect to that gentleman, he's doing phenomenal work. But I think your emergency fund, once again, should be 3 to 6 months of your living expenses or whatever. And the way you find out what your living expenses are is you create a budget and you go from there. So next, why exactly do you need an emergency fund? You want to have liquid assets that are available inside of a bank. And I'm going to talk about what kind of bank I personally think that you should have in regards to this emergency fund. So because I'm an engineer and I live in a world full of numbers, I like to basically talk in regards to actual real world numbers. So let's say you have $100,000 tied into your real estate business, and let's say you have $100,000 tied into your retirement accounts. And let's say you only have $2,000 in the bank. So you have $100,000 in real estate, $100,000 tied into your business or whatever, and you only have $2,000 in the bank. Now, let's say you live in Miami or whatever, and your air conditioning system breaks or whatever in July. And now let's say when you call your HVAC tech, he says it's going to cost you $10,000 to replace the AC in your house, but you only have $2,000 in the bank. That's a problem. You can't necessarily, you do not want to take that money out of your retirement account, and you most certainly do not want to take that money out of your real estate business. So where do you get the money from? Let's do a second example. Let's say you live in Chicago, Christmas Day is coming up, all your in-laws are basically flying in or whatever from overseas, and you have a large house, and you come home, your wife says, Chris, the heat doesn't work. You go downstairs, your boiler has blown. Let's say you call the HVAC tech and he says, yeah, I can fix your boiler, but it's going to cost about $15,000 to fix it. Now you have $100,000 once again in your retirement account, in your 401k, your Roth IRA, and your HSA account, and you have $100,000 tied into your business, but you only have $2,000 in the bank, but you have a $15,000 bill you're looking at. That is where the emergency fund comes into play, people. You want to have liquid cash that's available, preferably in a bank account, or preferably in something that's giving you some form of interest, so that you can quickly basically be able to get money out of that account. Now, there are roughly 2 types of banks that I push for you to basically stash your emergency fund, because once again, you do not want to be in a situation where you're saying, okay, should I take money out of my real estate business? Should I take money out of my 401k to essentially try to pay for this lifetime emergency that pops up? And take it from me, people, you are going to have lifetime emergencies. Your wife's gonna get pregnant. When your kid's gonna have a medical bill, you're gonna have a medical bill. You're gonna need surgery. A family member may need to be buried. You're gonna have to basically borrow money for something. Something is going to happen. Get ready for it. Okay, it's going to happen. And you need to be prepared for when that situation happens. And there are two types of bank accounts, people, that I think you should park your emergency fund in. The first one we're gonna talk about is one that all of us have heard about. You need a brick and a mortar bank account. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, people like that. You essentially want to have a type of bank account where you can physically walk into a bank location, you can physically walk into an ATM and basically pull out $2,000 to $5,000, $3,000, whatever the emergency fund is going to be. The reason why is because you want to have an account that you can essentially physically walk into, that you can access in most parts of the country, in most parts of the United States or Europe, Canada, or whatever. So in my personal opinion, you should never keep more than 2 months rent into this bank account. So let's say, full disclosure, let's say you have a Wells Fargo. Let's say that's the brick and mortar one that you want to use. And let's say that your rent every month is $1,500. Just throw out the numbers. In my personal opinion, you should never have more than 2 months rent, or in this case, $3,000 into that account. And the reason why is very simple. The API, the annual percentage yield or whatever for Wells Fargo, is absolutely abysmal. It's terrible. Having said that, you do want to still have this account because you want to have, you basically want to be able to write checks or whatever to pay your mortgage. You want to be able to write checks to pay for your apartment. You want to be able to write checks basically to pay for your home and to pay for whatever. You want to be able to write checks essentially to pay for your food and your groceries. So you basically want to have that checking account so that you can essentially write checks or whatever to pay things. But once again, the APY is terrible. What do I mean by that? The annual percentage yield of Bank of America, of Wells Fargo right now is 0.01%. In real world terms, this is what that means. Imagine you put $1,000 into your Wells Fargo account, okay? And you don't put any more money into it. So you let it sit for 10 years. 10 years later, with an APY of 0.01%, you have made exactly $1 in your Wells Fargo account. So you put $1,000 into it, you let it sit essentially for 10 years, and you come back 10 years later, you have $1 in your account. So needless to say, you don't make any money whatsoever by having money into your into this account. So as a result, that's the reason why I say you want to essentially only have about 2 months rent inside this account. Now, the second account I want you to open, I'm gonna walk you through all this, guy. I'm gonna walk you through these steps or whatever later on in this video. The second account you want to open, it should be your high interest account or whatever. And for this particular one, it can be Marcus Goldman Sachs, it can be SOFI, it can be there's a lot of different there's a lot of different high interest bank accounts that you can use or whatever. But for these or whatever, the APY, the annual percentage yield, can be anywhere from 2 to 3%. So let's say you have let's say you find a high interest account online or whatever, you create a profile for that account and you put $1,000 into your high interest account. Now $1,000 in a high interest account with an APY of 2.5. Now 10 years later, after you put that $1,000 into your high interest account or whatever, that account has grown to over $1,300. So with Wells Fargo, it grew up to $1,001. With the high interest account, it grew to over $1,300. You essentially made over $300 more over that 10-year period by putting it in a high interest account. Why? Because the APY is literally 270 times higher. So as a result, people, that's why I say you should have essentially 2 accounts. You should have your brick and mortar bank account, which is what you got your checks from, for your groceries, for your car note, for your daughter's recitals or whatever, for your school dances or whatever your bills are. You should have 2 accounts. And the second account should be your high interest account. That's the one, that's the money maker. That's the one you put most of the cash that you want to essentially have as liquid. That's the one you put into that high interest account. And the way you're going to set it up is that you can essentially transfer your money to and from accounts. So for instance, if you're with Marcus Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo, you set it up so that if you need to transfer money from both accounts, it's very easy to do so. Okay. So let's keep it moving. Oh, by the way, please hit that like button. Please like, comment, and subscribe or whatever. It helps the algorithm, and I enjoy giving you guys free content, and it helps the channel. Okay. So as I said earlier, everybody, I'm going to walk you through essentially where we go to set up these accounts. Okay. So what I want you to do is this. I want you to go to www. Let's go to Google first. Let's go to Google. Make it easier. So go to Google. And as you go to Google, I want you to type in Wells Fargo, because we're going to use Wells Fargo. I'm with Wells Fargo, so we're going to go with this bank account, plus APY. When you go to Wells Fargo plus APY, I want you to scroll down and take a look at what the APY is. APY is essentially your interest rate. It stands for annual percentage yield. The annual percentage yield for Wells Fargo is 0.01%. What that means is that if you put $1,000 into this account and you don't put any more money into it, and you come back 10 years later with an APY of 0.01%, that means you will have approximately $1,001 in your account. You made $1 in 10 years. Does that sound like a ripoff? It does to me. Okay, cool. So now what I want you to do is this. Go back to Google, type in high interest savings account, okay? And I want you to take a look at some of these APYs. So your high interest savings account, let's go to this 5 best online savings accounts. Okay, let's go here. So I want you to click this and take a look at some of these. You see SoFi, it has an APY of 2.5%, which means it's 250 times higher than Wells Fargo's. Citibank, 2.7%. Marcus Goldman Sachs, 2.15%. UFB, 3.01%. I like that. So basically, people, what this is saying is this is literally over 250 times, sometimes 300 times higher than the APY for Wells Fargo. In English, what that means is this: in Wells Fargo, if you put $1,000 in, you leave it in there for 10 years, you make $1. With these accounts, if you put $1,000 into your account and you live in there for 10 years, you're probably gonna have anywhere from $1,300 to $1,400 into these accounts. That means you will have gotten literally over 300 more dollars by leaving it into these high interest accounts than instead of leaving your money in your basic checking, your basic Bank of America or basic Wells Fargo account. What I'm telling you people is this: you need to have 2 emergency funds. One emergency fund, 2 months rent basically that you put inside of your a basic brick and mortar account, and your real emergency fund, you want to park that in one of these high interest accounts. Okay, so with that, let's keep it moving. First and foremost, one of the main benefits of an emergency fund is it cuts out the idea of you having to run to your credit cards or whatever if an emergency pops up. So in that Chicago Christmas Day boiler breaks, you had to pay $15,000 to fix your heating or whatever. If you only have $2,000 liquid cash saved up, you're gonna have to essentially run to your credit cards. And if you run to your credit cards, with those APYs like 27 to 28%, if you don't pay that thing at the end of the month, you're screwed. So as a result, people, you want to have a benefit of emergency fund is that it limits the need for you to run to your credit cards. And before full disclosure, people, I personally think that every minority, every Black person, every white person, every Hispanic person, every American in general, in my opinion, should have a credit card. I know there's people out here saying you should not have a credit card. I think that's crazy. I think you need a credit card because A, you need to build your credit, and B, there are a lot of travel hacks that you get with having a credit card. So in my personal opinion, you need to have a credit card. Secondly, I find that, how can I say this nicely? Bankers and people treat you a lot differently when you have an 800 credit score and you have about $25,000 saved in the bank. Whereas if you go anywhere and your credit score is under 500, they may call the police on you. So seriously, in all honesty, people, you want a credit card and pay that thing off every month. But you do not want to run to your credit cards because you have failed to prepare. You want to have an emergency fund. We have a fully stocked emergency fund or even a partially stocked emergency fund. It significantly limits the opportunities and the chance of you basically making a financial mistake, having to run to a credit card and then not having enough money to pay that bill at the end of the month. So the next reason why I say you need an emergency fund, from my experience, your boss, they talk to you a little differently when you basically have, once again, about $50,000 saved in the bank. You've got about an 800 credit score. People just kind of, they treat you a little bit differently or whatever when they say, okay, something is different with this dude or something is different with this woman. I can't talk to them any kind of way. And I have personally seen, for whatever reason, bosses, employers, and if you're an entrepreneur, customers talk to you a lot differently when you may have walkaway power. If you have the ability to essentially walk away from a job because the person's disrespecting you and you know you can go 6 months chilling in another country, not having to worry about getting another job, the way people talk to you is differently. I find if you're a business owner and you have a client come at you sideways and come at you crazy and talking to you crazy or whatever, and they basically refusing to play ball with you, you say, you know what, I don't need this deal. Have a nice day. You can kick rocks. So there's a certain level of swag, if you want to call it that comes with it, having a fully stocked emergency fund and also having a great credit score. Next, I'll keep this completely real and I'll say it like this. Wifey, your girlfriend, your man, your husband, or whoever, they're a little bit more happy with you when you have about 6 or 7 different zeros in your bank account or whatever, and you have a fully stocked emergency fund. And if you keep her happy, she'll make you happy. So you want to have your wife or your girlfriend or your husband, your wife, whoever, they're very happy when you have a fully stocked emergency fund. Next thing too, it gives you a target to shoot for with your budget. So as I said earlier, I have a free financipation budget below. Please check on it. And when you start typing in your numbers and everything, you say, okay, if I push this around, I can save $1,000 more dollars. If I push this around, I can save $75. Okay, if I cut cable here, I can save $125 a month. When you basically start setting budgets or whatever, and you start setting goals for your budgets, I find trying to get a fully stocked or partially stocked emergency fund, it allows you essentially to have a target to shoot for. And if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But if you have a target to shoot for, I find people get a lot more serious on their grind about getting on their financial emancipation, on their financipation. So it gives you a target to shoot for. Next, it gives you very easy, teachable moments to your son and your daughter. I have a 6-month-old son. He is the love of my life. I love him more than anything else in the world. Just about him. Me and my wife have created a beautiful child, and I love being a father. And when my son gets old enough, I'm gonna say, okay, This is how much money you have in your emergency fund. This is how much money you have in your HSA account. This is how much money you have in your custodial account. This is how much money you have in your 529 account. I'm going to be basically teaching my son financial emancipation and financipation. I'm going to be teaching him financial literacy. And when your kids can essentially see, or your loved ones can see basically the amount of money that's in their account, it gets the wheel moving. It's okay, this is why daddy's getting up every morning. This is why daddy's working so hard in his businesses or whatever. So it gives you an easy teachable moment to your child. Next, it perfectly segues into your house fund and you becoming a home investor. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about this one and give an example a little bit later on, but I'll say it to you like this. When you have about $100,000 sitting in your emergency fund and the opportunity to purchase some property comes up, it's a lot easier to be prepared for that moment when it does. So I said earlier that having a fully stocked emergency fund gives you options, and these are the kind of options that it gives you. Every now and then, there are those once in a decade financial opportunities that present themselves. But you know the thing about it, they only present themselves and you're only going to be available to take them if you prepare accordingly. So for instance, let's say you have a fully stocked emergency fund, okay? And let's say you have $100,000 in this fully stocked emergency fund. Let's say your next door neighbor down the street, he dies, and his kids are financially illiterate because they don't watch channels like Financipation, and they're also kind of lazy. So as a result, this $300,000 home that their father or their mother and their mother had, they can't afford it anymore. And let's say these kids, they basically need the money because once again, they don't watch Financipation, they're lazy, and they basically have not been, and their parents did not financially teach them the way money actually operates. So these kids need the money. So instead of them basically selling their home or whatever, they basically at market value, they sell it for $50,000 under market value. You essentially are able in a situation where you can purchase a $300,000 home for $250,000. So let's say you buy that home, because the kids basically, once again, they're financially illiterate. So they sell it to you $50,000 under market value because they need the money. On top of it, the house is falling apart. So let's say you put $50,000 into rehabbing that home. Let's say you then get the bank to come back after you fixed it, after you've rehabbed the home, you get the bank to refinance the home. And when the bank refinances the home, they say this $300,000 home is now worth, based off of the location, the market value, and its proximity to schools and other areas like that, it's now worth $450,000. You now are able to rent this house out for literally 33% more than what you could when you first originally purchased it. Why? Because now the house is not worth $300,000. It's worth $450,000 because you put $50,000 into it. And let's say basically as you're renting this house out, you're getting a positive cash flow every month of, let's say, $1,500 every month in this home. You never would have been able to do that if you did not have this $100,000 emergency fund essentially just laying around. That's one example. Now let's give another example. Let's say you have a friend or whatever, you have a family member, or you have a person that you know, you hoop with or whatever. Let's say they unfortunately die. And let's say when they die, their kids are financially illiterate and their kids are lazy and they don't really want to work that hard. And their kids, basically their parents bequeath them 10 acres of land. Now let's say, because you understand the way land operates, these kids can easily get $4,000 per acre of land or whatever. But when you walk up to them, you know, because they need the money and they're financially illiterate, they don't watch channels like Financipation or whatever, you offer them $20,000 cash to buy those 10 acres. So you essentially get $40,000 worth of land for only $20,000. Now, let's say you hold this property because once again, you have 10 acres of land now or whatever. You say, okay, cool. God makes more people. He does not make more land. So as a result, I'm just gonna hold on this property. Let's say you hold on this property for, I don't know, 15 years. And let's say a developer comes by and says, okay, we want to build a data center in this particular land. You have 10 acres of land. That's exactly where we want it to be. We will pay you $500,000 to basically buy these 10 acres of land from you. Will you take the deal or not? And once again, you only spent $20,000 for this land or whatever because the people that were selling were broke and they were financially illiterate, didn't realize what they had. You only spent $20,000 for this land, and 15 to 20 years later, you were able to sell it to a developer who basically is going to flip it, and they give you $500,000, $500,000 for this land. People, I have met people who have been in these situations before. And this is the reason why I say you have to maintain you have to have an emergency fund, and you need to basically get financially literate, because these opportunities, they don't come by very often, but they are the type of once in a decade opportunities that do come by. So be prepared for it, okay? Lastly, it allows you to having a fully stocked emergency fund. And this is actually one of my favorite ones on this list, is that it allows you to completely chase after your financial emancipation. When you have a year worth of liquid cash saved in your high interest account, when you essentially can walk away from corporate America or not make a sale for an entire year in your businesses because you have so much money saved in your high interest accounts or whatever, it allows you to roughly save 65 to 70 to sometimes 80% of your income every month. So this is what that allows you to do. I always talk about 3 pillars of wealth in this particular channel: the 401k, the Roth IRA, and the HSA account. If you have a fully stocked emergency fund, it allows you to easily put the $21,000 a year that you can put into your 401k. It allows you to easily put the $6,000 a year you can put into your Roth IRA, and allows you to easily put the $7,200 a year you can put in your HSA account. What that means is that if you're putting roughly $35,000 a year into your retirement account, you are going to be a millionaire in probably 5 or 6 years. So it also allows you to easily invest in tens of thousands of dollars every year into what I call the 4th pillar of success, which is your total stock market index funds and your zero interest ETF accounts. In other words, people, you can easily max out your retirement as well as your investment accounts, as well as your stock market investing accounts, once you basically have a fully stocked emergency fund, and allows you to easily chase your financial emancipation. So with that, everybody, that's the reason why I wanted to talk about why you need an emergency fund. In my opinion, this is one of the first steps that you need essentially to building that generational wealth. And another thing, people, jealousy is going to have people hating on you that you should be learning from. Okay. So I'm just going to say it like this. There are people who need to watch this video, and there are people who basically you need to send this video to, and send that video to them. And if they're kind of getting a little in their feelings or whatever about some of the things that I'm talking about in this video, that's probably not a bad thing, because I would rather they learn essentially why they need to start saving their money and why they should start cutting back on certain things so they can eventually build their generational wealth, and to keep going down the path of their own, which is financial ruin and self-destruction. There is no reason why, if you live in a capitalist society like the United States of America, that you cannot build generational wealth, period. And in this video, guys, I wanted to talk about why you need a fully stocked emergency fund. Partially stocked emergency fund is 3 months or whatever, and a fully stocked emergency fund is being able to go 6 months without needing a job. So once again, everybody, this channel, Financipation, is all about making money. It's all about saving money. It's all about building generational wealth. And it's all about financially emancipating yourself from generational poverty. Please like, please comment, please subscribe to the channel. Additionally, you can please follow me at my Instagram page, which is _Financipation. You can follow me on my Facebook channel, Financipation, and you can also check out some of my digital and my e-products below as well. With everybody, please hit the like button, please comment, please subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.